Hello, welcome back to another episode of Initial Impressions. My name is Kaylee Pommering and I'll be your host today. I am so excited for this week's episode. As always, this podcast is designed to help you feel more at peace, to help you combat any emotional issues, any traumas, blockages that are keeping you from getting where you want to be, from feeling the way that you want to feel. So the objective of this is always to help you learn how to further develop the skill of self-soothing, because I honestly think that is not a trait that we were taught how to do well enough growing up, and it could benefit all of us so much to work more on the daily habits that we can incorporate into our lives that drastically change our quality of life. And so this series that I've been working on recently on the podcast is questions that you can ask yourself, journal prompts that you can do that are going to help you in all of those areas. And I'm getting specific for each one. I've been sharing what my answers were to these different journal prompts that I'm recommending that you do to give you an outline of how I answer these questions and maybe to trigger some different things inside of your mind and make you think about things in your personal life that you may have experienced something similar to me, or maybe you didn't realize that someone else has gone through that too, and maybe I can help you feel less alone in this world. I think a lot of us are going through things and we have a habit of not sharing them. We think that it's better if we keep those things tucked away, push it to the back burner, try to avoid it. But in fact, almost all of our issues, almost all the obstacles that we're facing that we just can't find a way to get around is because we have been pushing so much back, so many lessons that were placed into our life that we have not yet learned because we've been shoving those things to the back burner. And these situations, the emotions that they evict, they're trying to teach you something about what matters to you and about the different lifestyle changes maybe you should make, or even just the things that matter to you to help you realize your potential and your purpose in life. And so I want to help you face those things, be less afraid of those negative emotions. And last week's episode was heavy for sure. I shared a lot of kind of traumatizing things that I went through in my childhood and what I've been doing to overcome them, and just like working on shadow work. It was a heavy episode. And so this week I wanted to bring something a little bit more encouraging and lighthearted. And so I wanted to share 5 questions to help you boost your confidence and your self-respect. And so I am going to get right into it. The first question that I want you to answer about yourself is, what is my favorite thing about myself, both physical and mental? So you can pick a couple if you want to. You can just share one of each, but I want you to think of your favorite thing about yourself. So I'll start off with physical because I feel like whatever one's easier for you, just go with that one first. I feel like the first thing that kind of came to my mind was I appreciate my eyes. I appreciate that they're very unique. I've been told they kind of look like cat eyes. They're a little bit golden because I got some hazel green eyes. And so I feel like, as many insecurities as I have dealt with growing up, I was always kind of grateful that I had these eyes. So that was one that made me, just that I like about myself, one of my favorite things about myself. And then for the mental, I did my resilience, because no matter what has happened to me or what I've gone through or what challenges I have dealt with, I always come back 10 times stronger. And even if it takes me a minute, even if there's a lag, even if I'm like depressed for a minute or low on energy or trying to figure it all out, I still always get back up, and I always get back up stronger and more fiercer and more determined and more purpose driven than I was before. And so I really appreciate that quality about myself, that I am going to make everything that happens to me negative in this lifetime my strength. And I'm determined to not let any misfortunate experience go to waste and to let it make me become weaker, or let it make me become just like a shell of who I am. I just don't want to lose myself. What is the point of living if we don't keep getting up and fighting again and figuring out what those obstacles that we faced mean and what meaning we can give them? I'm not going to say that every bad thing that happens to you, I can't say for certainty that it was supposed to happen. I can't say for certainty that there was a meaning behind why it happened. However, I can say with certainty that you can give any negative circumstance a meaning, that you can give it a purpose, and that is you taking your power back. And that's something that I am grateful for, that I continue to do. I will give every negative experience a purpose, because I'll be damned if it's all for nothing, No. It's gonna serve a purpose in my life. The next one I did was, what's something I get complimented for? And I get complimented for being articulate. And that makes me happy because I think like a lot of people tell me that I'm good at speaking or expressing myself or giving good advice. And those things are like crucial. It's a crucial skill for me to have given the calling that I feel like I'm supposed to live out. I feel like it's my job to help people. It's my job to help people understand themselves better, to help them understand their purposes, and to learn how to self-soothe and just become the best version of themselves. And I could not effectively do that. I could not effectively be a life coach or be a podcaster if I didn't have that skill. So I am very grateful that other people recognize that in me, and it gives me more confidence to continue moving forward. And so it's really good to think about these things, like what is something that other people appreciate you for? What is something that they tell you that they just think is just a really good thing about you? What do you get complimented for? It's a nice thing to think about. So often we're thinking about how other people perceive negativities in us, or we're afraid that they're thinking of, judgmental things or thinking of our negative traits. But so often people share with us the things that they love about us, and it is our job, and they deserve for us to hold more weight on the good things they say than on the negative ones, because oftentimes the negative things that are said about you or to you is more of a reflection of that person's mental state. Because if you're really connected to love and you're really connected to fulfillment and alignment, then what you want to inspire in others is encouragement. And that often does not come from shaming them. It's different when somebody brings you to you something out of love that they want to see you grow in, and they have helpful advice. And it's another thing altogether for someone just to berate you and tell you that you deserve to be berated because of the fact that you're doing this thing and imperfectly, even though we are all imperfect. So we all have been on both sides of that, We've all had times where maybe we projected a little bit, overreacted about somebody else's imperfections because of an emotion that it was triggering in us, because of a way it was making us feel about ourselves. And that's not fair, but we all do it. And so I think we deserve also to acknowledge the good things that people say about us and to give appreciation for those things. I mean, appreciation is the magnifier for more, right? So in order to magnify more good thoughts about you, then you should be appreciative of the ones that are already being told to you, and believe these things about yourself. People tell you them for a reason, so believe them. Okay, the next one that I did was, what's a habit that I am really proud of myself for maintaining? And this one was a fun one to think about, because I have oftentimes struggled with consistency in my life because I'm not somebody who really loves a ton of structure usually. I love to be fluid and spontaneous in my life, and I'm recognizing too that there is an amount of structure and an amount of stability that actually gives you more room for freedom. And so in learning that balance, I've also realized that something that needs to be structured, a habit that I need to have, are things that are surrounding my mental state. Because when I am in a good mental state, I am the highest performer. I am the most empathetic, the best version of myself. And so I owe it to myself and to the world to make sure that my mental health practices are non-negotiable. And so something that I'm really proud of myself for keeping a habit is meditating, and that is something that I do religiously. I love it so much. I do it every morning, and I'm not naturally a morning person, so I'm proud of myself that I take the time to wake up at least 30 minutes early every day to make sure I can get a meditation and really just set myself up for success for the week, for the day, for the next hour. And that's something I'm really proud of myself for. And I just want to remind you that every single act, that every single thing that you do that is solely for the purpose of taking care of your mental state, for improving the quality of your life, those are all deep acts of love. And they deserve to be appreciated. I mean, those things are a big deal. Every decision that you make that helps you to feel more at peace and more aligned in your life and more fulfilled is a gift not only to yourself, but a gift to the world, because you show up as the best version of yourself. And when you put your mental health on the back burner, when you focus on these things that they just seem like they're so much more pressing, the things that you're stressed out about in your life, and you just pour your all into other people or obligations, you are missing out on how efficient and how fulfilling your life can be if you realize that the thing that needs to be prioritized first is your state of mind. Because that version of you that is unfulfilled and tired and burnt out doesn't have nothing on the version of you that is moving in a place of fulfillment and just overflowing with joy and peace and love and intentionality in your life. Because that version of you is not as productive, that version of you is not as creative, not as efficient, not as fun to be around, and genuinely not as happy. And so if you are so much more effective and just higher performing when you take care of your mind, then I can't imagine any reason why any of us should be neglecting that. And I think it's a misconception. We think like, oh, it's not really quite as important, but it is. It's the most important thing in your life. That's why in the airplanes, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. The only way that you can show up as the best version of yourself is to create the best version of yourself. And you do that through intentional acts. Happiness doesn't happen on accident. Peace doesn't happen on accident. And if you wait for those perfect lining of the stars for these circumstances that are going to make you happy, they will happen every once in a while, but they will be inconsistent and they'll be scary when you experience them because all you're going to be wondering is when it's going to go away. And so the best way to create stability and true appreciation and peace in your life is through habits that promote a higher mental health, a higher state of being, a more aligned version of yourself. So that's my little TED talk on why you should prioritize your mental health. Okay, number 4, what is a time that I was most proud of myself in the last year? And for this one, I put quitting my bartending job and taking a leap of faith that I was supposed to follow my gut and my purpose and just trusting that it was going to protect me. I remember bartending was just not the lifestyle I wanted to continue. I don't even drink anymore. And I just found myself really wanting to encourage those people who were drinking for the wrong reasons at the bar to go home and work on themselves and, take some time to relax and decompress instead of just numbing themselves with alcohol. And I know that's not the only reason that people drink. Lots of people have healthy relationships with alcohol. It's just, I was seeing a lot of that being a bartender, and I just knew those hours working so late at night and that lifestyle, and there was just nowhere for me to go in bartending, and I just knew that I needed to take a leap of faith and quit, even though I didn't have another job lined up. I had just started my podcast a couple months before that, and I just I did not know what was going to happen. I knew I wanted to be a life coach, but I also knew I wasn't quite ready for that yet. And there was some things I needed to do to really get that set up. And I knew that was going to kind of take a minute. And so I knew I was going to have to find another job. And I just trusted that making the move in that direction was going to pay off in the end, and it did. And I've got this job working as a stylist, which I absolutely love, and it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's not a career thing, but there's a lot more opportunities to maximize my money. The hours are much more better for my schedule, and the work is easier on my body, and so I really appreciate that, and it's better for my mental health as well. And so all of those things really fell into place, and I got my office right after I quit my job, and just everything really was just moving into place. And I feel like it was because I chose to take a leap of faith and trusted my gut that was the direction I was supposed to go in. And so I'm proud of myself for doing that. It's really good to give yourself credit for things, because we think so often about the things that we're doing wrong, but we owe it to ourselves to remind ourselves of the things that we're doing right, because those things are just as real as the mistakes you make. And what you focus on, you increase. And so focusing on the good things that you've done remind you that is who you inherently are. That is the person that you want to be and the person you want to keep becoming. And so you deserve to focus on those things more, especially if that's what you want to see more evidence for in your life. Okay, the next one was, what area of my life have I grown in the most in my whole lifetime, and then also within the last 6 months? And so in my whole lifetime, I put that I follow my intuition better than I ever have. I really trust my gut now. I used to not really know what it meant to follow my intuition. I was a very type A personality, just really wanted to trust what has been proven for others, and it took me a while to accept the fact that we all have different journeys in life. And those of us who make it where we want to be, it's because we follow the path that we believe that we're called to, not because we do what everybody else is doing. Because I'm trying to build something that is different than anyone else that I know. And so what good would it do for me to continue trying to just like imitate other people, or believing that because it didn't work for somebody else, it wouldn't work for me, when we are completely different people. And so I've gotten way better at like trusting my intuition and following my gut in the direction that I feel like I'm supposed to go in. And then for over the last 6 months, I put that I've gotten a lot better at facing really uncomfortable emotions and memories, and just allowing myself to experience them and not to villainize them, and to just accept things for how they are and try and make peace with the moment, even when it's not quite where I want to be yet. And that's something that I've kind of struggled with. And there was a long time where I felt really at peace, but I realized that peace was a little fragile, because it was based on the fact that I wasn't doing anything risky. I wasn't making any leaps. I was staying very still. And I think like I needed to do that for a time, but at a certain point, like it's easy to feel at peace when you kind of isolate yourself. But when you put yourself out there and you put yourself in uncomfortable positions for growth, and you put yourself in scary situations where you feel vulnerable and things may not pan out, and you're really trusting your intuition, that can be a scary thing, and it can rock the boat a little bit. And so I'm proud of myself for taking those leaps, and for learning how to find peace and bring myself back to peace through actually allowing myself to experience those negative emotions when they do come up. This episode was supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun to kind of talk about, not as intimidating, not as intimidating as like doing shadow work on your serious traumas in your life, which, it's good to give yourself breaks. You can focus on those things too, and that's so important, but you should also give yourself credit where credit is due, and just really keep on building up that self-confidence, building up that self-respect, because what you give to yourself, you will see reflected back to you in the world. And the more you respect yourself, the more confidence that you build, the more people will look up to you, and they will believe that you're worthy of respect because you believe you're worthy of respect. And when you have confidence, that just exuberates out of you. People can feel it. I think exuberates is a word. But yeah, I feel like this is a really important topic, and I think like especially as women, and men too, we struggle with this, and I want us to all show up as the most powerful versions of ourselves. And so I hope this episode was helpful. If you felt like it was helpful for you, or if there's anyone that you think it could benefit, then please like the podcast, share it, subscribe. It absolutely means the world to me, every single one of you that listen. Also, I would love for some ratings. So if you listen to my podcast, if you're a loyal person that listens to my podcast, please leave a review for me. I would love that so much. And if you didn't know, if you listen to my audio podcast and not the visuals, there is a visual podcast now. It's a video series on YouTube that's been out for a couple months now. So if you want to check that out, check out a different version of the Initial Impressions podcast, you can go ahead and do that on YouTube. And as always, I hope that you are leaving more at peace than you came.